Today we're going to talk about all of the books that I read for the week in Weird. I got my weird hat on, or one of them. I have a few. I could have worn my Mothman hat, but I wore that in a recent video. So for the week of Weird Readathon, it was put on by Fiber Artsy and Jason's Weird Reads. I love weird books and weird stuff, all things that are strange, so it was a perfect readathon for me. Also encouraged me to read a book that I've had on my shelf for a while that I bought, I think, last year. And I got to read, and it was a really great book, which we'll talk about here shortly. Actually, two books that had been sitting on my shelf that I hadn't read. So the first one was the Sasquatch Seekers Field Manual. I almost feel like that's a tongue twister every time I try to say that. The Sasquatch Seekers Field Manual. I think I got it. If you want to go out and find Bigfoot, or at least try, because he's been winning at hide and seek for ever since I can remember. This book gives you a lot of tips and tricks, some hot spots that you can go to, and it's got a lot of stories and accounts of people who have seen Bigfoots around from way back in today up until present time. And this is a pretty good resource. There's a lot of stuff that it suggests that you take out with you when you go into the woods that I wouldn't have even thought of. So it's pretty cool. I had not read anything by this author before, but it's pretty in-depth. It's easy to read. It was enjoyable to read, and there's a few illustrations in there. It was a good time, and it's weird. I love cryptids, so I'm a big fan of reading books about cryptids. I have another one on deck. I wasn't able to get to it this week. The United States of Cryptids by J.W. Ocker. I'll be exploring more weird and more cryptids very soon. So a book I reread for the week of Weird Readathon was The King in Yellow. This is a super weird book. It was written in olden times. It was written in like 1895. There's also a bunch of different prompts too, and I will tell you which books aligned with the prompts after we go through all the books that I read and whatnot. So one of the prompts was to read an older weird book, and this is super old. It's got a bunch of short stories in it, and The King in Yellow is this play that when you read it, you go mad, living the life of being insane after you read it. So the first 4 short stories in this kind of tie that play into the storyline, which I thought is pretty cool. And some of these stories I really liked. There's one that's a story about this guy getting lost out in the moors. He runs into this girl, and it's basically like they're the Fae and he's stumbled into their land is what it seems like to me. That was probably one of my favorite stories in here. Some of them, though, were really boring, but a good chunk were pretty good, and it's an older book, and I think a lot of it is just a lot of it stands up, but some of it just maybe the time frame and crossing into what year we're in now just didn't hold up for me. But overall it was pretty darn good, and it's the second time I read it. It's funny because I only really remembered one of the stories, and as I read through them again, like, I would vaguely remember what happened, but not really. It's short, it was super weird, and yeah, it's old. The next one I read was the XFiles. This is the XFiles archives. So it had 2 stories in it. The Ruins and Whirlwind were the stories that were in this. It is just awesome to revisit the X-Files and have it in book form. I didn't know they even made these books. I found this at the library for like 50 cents, which was an awesome score. The writing was great. I love anything X-Files, and getting to revisit that world and that weirdness and all the weird things that happen with Mulder and Scully. It's kind of awesome, and I want to try and find more of these books. This is the first one, so I wonder how many more there are. I'm gonna have to look into it. I rewatched the X-Files again like a couple years ago. It holds up. Like, it's just as good now as it was then, and weird, and definitely suited to the week of Weird Readathon. I flew through this. That was only like 300 something pages. So the one story, Whirlwind, that was about all these bodies were turning up and they were like super mutilated, and they think there's a serial killer, and it's all weird, and it ties in like this Native American lore and weird stuff that's happening, and of course it's supernatural because the X-Files. That story was great. And then the other one is The Ruins, which is down in Central America. These archaeologists had found this new Mayan settlement that they were excavating, and then they mysteriously disappear, and stuff gets all weird, and weird stuff happens around there. So Mulder and Scully, they gotta go investigate and see if they can find these people, especially because like the one daughter is like this super well-known archaeologist daughter and whatnot. And as per usual in the X-Files, stuff gets real weird. Maybe it's astronauts, maybe it's aliens. I wonder what's inside the X-Files. And then the last book I read was The Hideous Book of Hidden Horrors I bought this last year. Meant to read it quite some time ago. It's a short story book. It's got a bunch of weird horror stories. It was fantastic. I think I enjoyed almost every short story in here. There's a ton of authors, well-known and lesser-known. You know, there's Josh Malerman, Cynthia Palaio, Haley Piper, Andy Davidson, and that's just to name a few. Some of my favorite stories, there was 4 of them, were by authors I'd never heard of. So I love that. I love when I come across stories that are by people I haven't heard of, and like my favorite ones weren't the authors that I knew. Like they're also really good, but my faves were new authors. So to me, that's really exciting when that happens. Let's tell you about those. The first one I really liked was by an author called Sarah Red, and the story's called Wish Wash. It's out in this forest. These kids go out there, and there's this weird old gnarled tree in it, and they set something free from the tree that offers them something. That's all I'm going to say about that one. It was really good. The other story in here was by an author, John F.D. Taff, and it's called The Things We Did Were All For Real. And this story, this guy, he's a therapist, you know, and he helps people with their issues and whatnot. And he talks to this lady one day who seems like she's getting vibes that he's kind of down and just, you know, out of it and maybe needs some help. And she tells him about this phone booth that's out in the middle of the desert, out in the middle of nowhere, where he can go make a call and just, you know, vent or let it all out and talk about whatever's ailing you. Who knows who's on the other end? I don't know. And so this guy's like, do I want to go out there? And he kind of thinks it's ridiculous, but you know, it's a story, so he ends up going out there, and it's great. It's a really great short story. I like that one a lot. And then another one I liked is by Richard Thomas. It's called Peripheral Vision. And this one, there's this couple, like the guy, when he sees spiders in the house or a moth or whatever, he'll take it and he'll set it free outside, or if there's like mice, he'll take them and set them free. And his girlfriend or his partner is always like, kill it, ah! And you know, she wants these bugs dead. It's what happens when something really weird happens, and it seems like the way that these people behave towards creatures might affect their future a little bit. And that's all we'll say about that one. Let me just say though, also, all of these stories were great. These spoke to me. You know, you get those ones that you really just love. None of these were bad at all. They were all good, but these ones I thought were just a little bit a step above the others. I don't know. And then the last one that I really loved was by Todd Kiesling, called Annie's Heart is a Haunted House. And this had the vibe of like a little bit of a reality show or like Saw, but it was super weird and it had to do with dreams, and I love stuff that has to do with dreams. Give me a story with dreams in it, dream sequences, weird stuff, bringing stuff from the dream world, and I'll flippin' love it. That just, you know, speaks to one of my key favorite things that will slant me towards liking your story a lot. All these people end up in this weird mansion house. Slowly, one by one, they all are kind of picked off by something. And that one was really good too. So that was my favorites of those. So now we're gonna go over the prompts and I'll tell you which book applied to which. So the prompts were old weird, read a weird story or book written from the 1910s to the 1970s. For that, it was The King in Yellow. This was written in 1895, and it's old, and it's older than the prompt asked for, but still counts. Then the next prompt is New Weird, read a story or book written from the 1980s to the present. And that was every single one of the other books that I read. So the XFiles book, the Hideous Book of Hidden Horrors, and the Bigfoot book. Then the next one was Out of This World, read a weird story with sci-fi elements. In one of the X-Files stories, there's aliens in it. So, I mean, it's kind of sci-fi. I'm not saying it was aliens, but it was definitely aliens. The next prompt is The Dark, read a weird fiction story with supernatural or horror elements. There were several in the Hideous Book of Hidden Horrors that had supernatural and horror elements. And then the last one was Flora and Fauna, read a weird story featuring nature. And as I said, the Hideous Book of Hidden Horrors had that story about something that was in that tree. And then also Bigfoot, that Bigfoot book, the field guide, it is all takes place outdoors because it's going to tell you how to go out into the woods and how to find Bigfoot, or how to try and find Bigfoot. No one's found him yet, so I can't say how to find Bigfoot. Just, you know, he's out there winning at hide and seek. World champion. And those were all the prompts for the Week of Weird Readathon, which is really awesome. I'm so happy I did this because I love weird books. It made me read some books that have been sitting on my shelf that I needed to get to, which is awesome. Also, I don't think I would have stumbled upon this XFiles book if I hadn't, because I was at the library and I was looking at their little bookshelf where they have random books for sale sometimes, and I saw that and I was like, Week of Weird, and I picked it up. So I just want to say a big thank you to Jason's Weird Reads and Fiber RC for putting on the Week of Weird. This was awesome. Hopefully we do this again next year. If you guys are fans of weird books, the next video coming up will be about weird books. So stick around, check it out, and if you had fun hanging out today, hit that subscribe button, come back, see me again, and we'll talk about more bookish things and weird stuff.